Welcome to Wife Reset. This week's guest is Leah Farineau. Leah's been a spousal caregiver for 4 years, and today we're going to be talking about role resetting, redefining who you are after your husband is on the road to recovery, and relinquishing that caregiver role. Welcome, Leah, to Wife Reset. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today.
Awesome, awesome. So, share a little about yourself, or maybe who you were before caregiving, and then into how you became a spousal caregiver.
So, I had been a master hairdresser for a long time, and my life was about that. It's a whole lifestyle career. And I met my husband in Florida, not in New Jersey, where I'm from. And things kind of just shifted and changed, and I decided to go to work in a hospital, which now I realize the Lord was laying plans for the future. But I went into food service. So, I just reinvented myself at 50 and became
Wow.
a new person. Much nicer
Wow.
person, I would think.
Wow. So, so are you a full-time caregiver now?
No,
You were
that
just for
that
that
role
four
actually,
year.
yep,
Hmm.
that role has changed in the last year. It's transformed from being that full-time caregiver to coming home. 3 days ago, my husband was doing his own meds and I didn't have to do them, or he can make
Wow.
his own doctor appointments now, and it's just such it's a beautiful thing to see. It's that pot of gold at the end of that rainbow.
That's awesome. Yeah, my husband was like 100% totally dependent on me when he first came out of the hospital or the rehab center from his stroke. So to have him be able to do a little bit of, some things by himself. So who is Leah now?
I'm a much kinder, gentler person. I have
Hmm.
acquired something I never had before, which was patience. I was never a patient
Hmm.
person. I really have a relationship with the Father that I never
Hmm.
had before, not like this.
Hmm.
Letting go of control in his illness was a huge thing for me. I always was, I should say, a very hyper achieving person. So it was hard to let that control go. And I realized if I didn't, then I knew for sure that he was going to die because I couldn't fix the problem. Only God could fix the problem. Um, you know, I actually did a little bit of research on some Bible verses because I don't always read, but I know, I can't find, but I know what it says. And to be a woman of Proverbs is very important to me. And Proverbs
Yes,
31, when my dad said to me in the beginning of the husband's illness, he said, I want you to know, now I'm going to cry, I'm sorry. I want
that's
you to know that
okay.
you are such a beautiful woman of Proverbs, and I am so proud to be your father.
Wow.
That meant everything to me. And it wasn't
Wow.
like a prideful thing. It was more, it actually gave me more humility because it comes with great responsibility to be that person, to be a faithful example of God's love to other people. And it's important for me to show that every single day. Matthew 16:24 and 26 and Luke 9:23 tells you to pick up your cross.
Hmm.
And my husband, I believe at the time, was a cross. His illness was the cross for me to bear. And through that journey, I have learned so much. I've learned how to be a better Christian, how to be a better woman, how to pray properly, because there is a whole way to pray that people don't understand.
Hmm.
It's not like asking a genie for a wish or a favor to be granted. You never, ever pray for patience because let me tell you, you will get everything in your life that requires patience. So I learned the correct words to pray. Not set prayers per se, but how to do it. And it has helped me immensely in other aspects of my life.
That's awesome. And you are so right about it changes how you pray. It really
Very much so.
does. Because a lot of my prayer life was, at first it was, Lord, help me to give me the strength to do this.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Because I can't do this on my own.
Sorry.
But first, my prayer was, Lord, give me. First, I was angry. I was angry, and I was talking to Melinda about it. I was very angry. So I went from angry and disbelief to my prayer was, give me every day, Lord, give me what I need to care for my husband. So you start praying differently,
Yes.
because I knew that if I woke up every day, there's nothing in me on my own that I could pull from. I needed to pull my strength from him, my peace from him, my wisdom from him every day. So what would you give to other caregiver wives whose husband may not be 100% dependent on them, but it's hard for them to relinquish that? I don't want to say control, but maybe it is control. But what would you say to that caregiver wife who just says, you know what, even though my husband could do this, I still want to be able to do it, because right now I have wrapped my identity in spousal caregiving. That's what I am.
It's so easy to lose yourself in that role and just be
Mm-hmm.
that person. Now, he's recovered and he has a few issues still, but nothing major. And he's a year ahead of schedule recovery wise, which is
Mm-hmm.
great for us. But I wanted to maintain who I was as a mother of two daughters and a grandmother to four, as well as the person I am to my parents
Mm-hmm.
and when I go to work and the things that I do for other people. And it was very important to me. So part of us growing as a couple and as a family was me letting go and him finding something to do, so he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't also dependent on me. So we started a food bank in our driveway where he's free all the time and he goes to different food banks and locations that give out donated food, and he brings it home and he sets it up in the driveway every weekend, so that gives him something to do and me time to be myself,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of
I can,
sense.
even if it's to go for a pedicure or to go to my mom's and talk to her for an hour with a cup of coffee, it's my time. And that's something I missed for a long time. Working through all of it because he was 4 hours away in the hospital helped. And because I work in a hospital, it helped. I learned to read his
Mm-hmm.
medical charts from doctors and nurses that I see every day, but also the encouragement from the social workers and the nurses to just hang in there made a world of difference to me, and it helped me
Mm-hmm.
maintain my identity. I never carried the burden alone. I actually let other people know, man, this is hard. This is a hard place to be in. My husband could die, and then I would hear God say to me, wait a minute now, you gave this to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew underneath it all, I knew that God had it and he wasn't going to die. But it's still that little seed of fear. That's still the devil working in you to give you that little seed of fear saying, you're going to lose the person you love most in the world. And then I realized, wait, I'm gonna make it. I knew he would be okay. So letting letting the stress go to other people, letting other people encourage you and love you as a caregiver through it gives a world of change to how you feel later on when it's over. That kept me so anchored. So
Yeah.
anchored. And
And
my folks would come over and pray with me every day, and it was just a really nice thing. It
having
was a horrible journey. I don't wish this journey on anyone, but I wish that the Lord, or I pray that the Lord would grant them the knowledge that we learned on our journeys.
having a support system is very important. So the
Yes.
fact that you had your parents, sometimes we alienate people when we're in this spousal caregiving, because we're so wrapped up in our husbands
Yes.
that we forget that we have friends and that we have family,
Yes.
because we're so wrapped up in, I have to do this for my husband, I have to do that for my husband. I I I wore and still wear that spousal caregiving robe tightly. I've given it some release, So it's kind of like a robe, and I tied that belt on tight. But my
And
husband said to me, honey, if you don't let me do for myself, then how will I know if I can do it or not? So in releasing some of the caregiver role, because as he gets into the years of post-stroke, he's getting stronger and there's a lot that he can do on his own. But I had a fear of, if I don't, then, to your point, he may get hurt again. He may have another stroke. I need to monitor this. When he stands up, honey, what are you about to do? What are you getting ready to do? And so it had become really hard for me to let that go. But having a support system is huge, but not just having the support system there. We have to invite that support system in. We have to realize that they're there. You had a thought?
yeah, I was going to say, like, the guilt. So when you take care of yourself or you do something for you while your husband may be in the hospital or in a rehab center, so many of us as caregivers get that feeling of guilt if we go out to lunch with our best friend or go have coffee with your mom or God love my youngest daughter. Every Sunday we had breakfast with her, my son-in-law, and the grandkids. She would invite me out to breakfast, and I would go. And in the beginning, I felt very guilty about it. And then I realized, wait, I still have to maintain me because he's going to come home to nothing. I didn't want to be a shred of a human being. I wanted him to come home to a whole human being, which in turn makes you stronger as a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of my goals, was to be as strong as I could when they got home.
Right, because we have to take care of ourselves so we could be here to take care of them. We can't let our identity be in our circumstances. Right?
That's it,
So
exactly.
our identity can't be wrapped up in the circumstance. It can't dictate who we are. So we have to let it go. Okay, my husband's better. That's a praise report right there, that he doesn't need me. But what happens, Leah, when you've been doing it for 15, 20 years?
It's
Or
got to
even
be a
10
really
years?
hard thing. Talk about, being exhausted emotionally and physically and spiritually and mentally drained. I would say that would probably do it. But, a lot of support if you find a nice group of ladies. I live in an older community, and a lot of the ladies support each other, and it's just a really nice thing. Somebody's husband passes away, and they're there for each other. It's just sometimes so hard to let go.
And as a
To
child
let
of God,
go.
ask him,
Yeah.
what's next? What's
Yes.
what's the next thing now? I've taken care of my husband for the last 10, 15 years. And I've done the best I can with the strength and the wisdom that you've given me, Lord. Now he's better. I praise you for that. But what's next for me?
And I did have that conversation. I think when I knew he was getting ready to come home, it was a lot of, because I didn't pray much for me, it was mostly for the doctors and the nurses and for him and for his mother, because he's her last child. So that was very important to me. But I finally prayed for myself and I said, you know what, Lord, you've had me since I was 19 years old. I'm ready for whatever you have for me now. And I will go where you want me to go. I will do what you want me to do. And just tell me. And it's funny because sometimes it's not so clear for some people, but for me, it was very, very clear. Um, I I work at a Starbucks in a hospital where families of patients come, and we have frequent flyers that their patient is there quite often, and I get to know them very well, and it's actually pouring out the love of God on those people. It's about just sharing the love of Christ being a support for them, because I know what it's like to be on the other side of that coffee counter,
Mm-hmm.
and having them walk away feeling a little bit more peace than they had when they came.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a blessing to me, and the Lord actually put me in that spot. I feel that I was meant to be there at this point of life. And the experience with my husband and his illness has grown me up to be able to do this.
And that's
It's pretty cool because I don't absorb it and bring it home.
exactly. What has, and I guess that's one of the things that the Lord has probably taught you. But my question is, what has God shown you about yourself? What has God shown you about yourself through this? Now that you're looking at it hindsight,
Oh,
like, what has the Lord taught you about yourself
that I am much
or
stronger
shown you?
than I ever thought I could be. That I am with my husband because I love him and choose him, not because I need him, and that God actually put him in my life for this purpose. And it just gives you such a different perspective on a relationship when you realize that this is part of God's plan for your life.
Mm-hmm.
He has opened my eyes to be compassionate to others in a way that I never thought I could. That, hmm, that patience is indeed an acquired virtue. That I was always an immediate gratification person, and I had to learn to wait on
Mm-hmm.
God. And it's okay to wait on God because you know what? He always shows up. He never ever not shows up.
Because He's always there.
Always, always. Whether the outcome is what you want or what he wants isn't the issue. I knew if my husband had, well, he actually did die for 4.5 minutes, but I didn't know about
Wow.
it till after the fact. But even if he had not come back, I knew that he would be okay where he was going.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me such a great sense of peace and such, I would wake every day in the light of God. I would put my feet on that floor at 4 o'clock in the morning and I knew it was going to be okay. And it let go of a lot of the stress that I had and worrying about him, about life, about washing a dish in my house. It changes your priorities so much. It wasn't about going to
It
work and
does.
making money. It was about being with the people that you love and that love you back.
It definitely does
And
change your
yes,
priorities.
and nothing happens in life without a purpose or a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed me immensely with a sense of calm and peace and tranquility that I never had in my life.
Because I so get all of that, but I've shared before. There was my husband and I were married maybe about 13 years or so when he had a stroke. Yeah, 8 years ago. We've been married 21 years now. And I traveled a lot in my job, and he was a cross country truck driver. So he traveled as well. We didn't spend a lot of time together, but it was working for us. But when I was sitting in the chair in his ICU room, I got it. This is why, Lord, you chose me for his wife, for this day right here. Because I didn't know the stroke was coming. And I didn't know that the company that I was working for was going to file for bankruptcy protection. And I lost my job. And 2 days later, he had a stroke. So we both had no job. And my husband was lying in the bed on a ventilator. not breathing on his own. But I got it. This is why you chose me for this moment right here, because God knew the stroke was coming. And he knew that he chose me all those 13 years ago for this season right here. I do believe that. I know it's hard for people to believe, but it's like God chose you because he knew that your husband was going to have a stroke 13 years later. Yeah, he chose me 13 years before my husband had his stroke to take care of my husband. The human part of having to do the Social Security and, get the hospital bills paid and the equipment and setting up the home and the bed and all that. Yeah, that scared me. That frustrated me. That angered me. I was exhausted. But the part of why God chose me for this season, I got it. And I was okay with it. And he walked me through it, through all of
He
the
still
human
walks me through it
emotions. Huh?
every day. Every day he
Every
walks me through
day.
it every day. And I'm very grateful for that.
Every day. He talks to me through songs or scripture or a text message or a phone call. I try to find little things like that throughout the day to say, wow, Lord. Because I feel like things like that show me that he's real. Yesterday it was snowing hard and the kids were outside snowing. I mean, playing in the snow and making snowmen. And I was like, wow, Lord, these kids are enjoying your work. I mean, it's cold, it's snowing, but it was beautiful because they were running around and they were throwing snowballs at each other. And
Joy.
others saw cold and snow and dreary. I saw beauty in that.
I think one of my favorite words is joy. And it's finding joy in everything and anything that you can that really makes a big difference to the outlook that someone might have in life. Um, Joy for me when I wake up in the morning and I hear him, and we're in separate rooms because of his immune system. So, he'll tell me, "Hey, call me when you get to work so I know you got there okay." And I find joy in that because a year ago he was 400 miles away
Mm-hmm.
and really not well, and now he's here. Or looking outside and seeing my lilies are blooming
Mm-hmm.
3 months earlier than they're supposed to, and that they bloom maybe 4 times a year instead of two.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, brings me great joy. And to me, that's a blessing and a gift from the Lord, because that you could plant a bulb in the ground and have it grow this immense, beautiful flower.
Going back to relinquishing your role, I heard you just say that when you go to work, your husband goes, call me when I get there.
Yes.
Once you were, now, did you not work for a period of time in these 4 years?
No,
Or
I've
did you
worked.
always, you just continued to work? Was
Yes.
there guilt
Not
in
that I was
going
going
to
to
work?
work. No. There was guilt more because he was so far away and I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get there. Um, he would call once he was in recovery post the surgeries, and
Mm-hmm.
he would say, "Well, why aren't you coming to see me?" Well, he had no clue that he was so far away at that point. Now, when we go up to Gainesville, which is very far away for us, he goes, "Boy, I hate this drive. Now I know why you didn't come up so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's far. It's really far. I hate being in the car for 4 hours because it's an 8 hour round trip." Um, but the guilt was mostly that I couldn't be there to do the everyday tasks for him
Mm-hmm.
that I would do had he been in a hospital by my house, where I would go every day and bring him home cooked dinner, because I did it for 2 years. I would bring him a home cooked dinner every night. I would bring him earbuds if he wanted them. If he wanted me to bring him shampoo to take a shower, I'd come home and go back to the hospital. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of doing for someone. But I did it, and I did it willingly, and I would never, ever begrudge him. It was a blessing to be able to do it for him.
Mm-hmm.
But the guilt for not being able to do that when he was up in Gainesville really does every once in a while peek its ugly head around. And then I realized that too could also be from the devil.
And most
That
likely
is just,
probably was.
it's just a shred of doubt. And any shred of doubt to me is not from God. So it got to the point, I think, where we just refused after we conversed a lot in video chat, and we got to the point there was never ever going to be anything negative said. Everything was going to be positive and forward moving and motivational and godly, and I would read the Bible to him, and it just helped pull us very close, but it also helped to appease a lot of that guilt that I had. 20 years ago, we did not have video chat. I think it would have been much worse. I think being able to video chat helps a lot. Um, for people going through situations like ours now, should you have to be apart, video chat helps a lot. I could video chat his doctors when they were in his room, which was terrific. But there are days I just did not want to be at work. It was hard to be there sometimes. And I just wanted to come home. And I will tell you that I did not miss one day of work in the year that he was gone, except to be up there when they needed me to be in Gainesville. So I kept saving my days in case something happened where I needed to be home for a while. There was a point he was going to be in hospice before he went for transplant surgery. So I was making plans for that, and then I realized I couldn't care for him at home. But that day that I relinquished control, there was a specific way that I prayed, and I asked the Lord to have someone hear my prayer, hear our cry for help. Lord, Father, I can't do this. Abba, I have to give this to you. Please, please let somebody help us. And that's the morning that an hour and a half, 2 hours later, he called me. And his doctor came in. His primary was his internist and said, Peter, I can't sleep. I kept hearing a voice say I had to help you. So I think we're going to get you in for transplant. And it was within 5 days, he was moved by ambulance to Gainesville to University of Florida Hospital, and he lived there for 6 months. But he came back totally different, new person. And we are very grateful for the family of the 13-year-old boy that lives on in my husband for the generosity and gift of life. And we pray for that family every day because my husband lives because of their loss. And he's so different. Like, he's just so joyful. When he came home, he is just so full of joy and love and light that it's like being with a whole new person. And I now have the husband I should have had all along. And he's just such a pleasure to be around. And I was sick last week, and he did everything for me and just felt so nice. I didn't have to get up. I didn't have to ask for anything. I got home from work and I was ill, and there was chicken soup on the stove, and he had the humidifier filled and water next to the bed with the cold tablets. And I got in bed and I didn't get up for 4 days. And it was just really a pleasure to have someone care for me for once in a while, you know?
It's so
It's a
wonderful
give and take.
because a lot of times we search, and I did, and I'm sure you did. We search for why this happened. Was it something I did? Was it something they did? And then we go through anger. I should have saw this. I should have did this. Why didn't God stop this? But if God told us why it was allowed, would that reason be good enough for us? Would we still not be angry? And I think sometimes it's just that God allowed it. And he knows what he's doing. And when you are in, I would have never seen the outcome. I would have never seen this outcome, the same outcome that you see as well, and that I've heard in many stories. that my husband and I didn't spend a lot of time together. But now that we are spending a lot of times together, he's my best friend. We laugh all the time. He prays over me every night. Every night, he prays over me. We can have conversations about God, his love, his goodness. We laugh all the time. Now we have little moments where we go back and forth, but it never goes into anger. It might be little moments of irritation, but it never goes into anger. And yes, we are in this caregiving season. But the beauty that has come from it, to me, far outweighs the pain.
Oh, definitely.
Far
It's
outweighs
been,
the pain.
I don't think I would change anything about the journey, truthfully. It made us
Neither
the
would
people
I.
we are today. And the joy, the laughter in my house now is so different than what it used to be. It's very wholesome. We have our own jokes. We laugh all the time. We do everything together, everything together. um, and it's okay. We never get tired of each other. So,
Mhm.
this holiday season was fabulous because it was the first time in 4 years that we were in the same house for a holiday. He was so sick
Wow.
for so long. Yes, we just enjoyed every minute of it, and it was a pleasure to be together. So, the old Pete was someone who I'm glad died for the four and a
Mm,
half minutes because the
mm,
new Pete that came back anointed
mhm,
and very, very full of the Spirit and the love of God. And he's the first one to talk about it. And he loves to tell people. And I love when we go out and he goes, yeah, well, I'm a double transplant and I had open heart surgery and I died and I saw my grandmother and she said, hey, you're not supposed to be here. But he goes, God changed me. And every step of the way. And he goes, this woman prayed for me. And I'm like, hold on, don't do that. We always had this saying, where God has done things that nobody would believe. So where there was rocks, he crushed them to sand.
mhm,
Where there were mountains, he moved them. And where there were
mm,
no doors, he built the door.
mm,
And even when we couldn't walk that path, he carried us every single step of this journey. And that has carried us through that, all of it. And now we always say we were flying by faith. Um, we go occasionally back to the local hospital to see the girls that cared for him. And they always say, we never heard people pray like you people. Like, I don't know. I guess people are afraid to show their faith,
mhm,
but we were just very open right from the beginning because we knew that that was the only way we'd make it through any of it. Even when he was in hospice, we prayed for him to get better, and they thought he had maybe 3 days to live. And 3 weeks later, he walked out of the hospital.
Praise God.
Hmm.
You have
Hmm.
such a beautiful story. You
Thank
have
you.
such a beautiful story. And you're such a beautiful person.
Well, I
What
like
would,
you too, lady.
and I'm so honored. What?
Don't you make me cry. Don't make me cry. I don't want to cry.
I
It's been a
told,
very beautiful journey.
it has. And it touched me when you said, there's nothing about it I would change.
Nothing.
Nothing, nothing about it I would change, because the things that God showed me about myself, the things that He took away from me that should not have been there in the first place, the things that I picked up along the way, He took from me because they were not of Him. And He draws me closer to Him every day. And the beauty of it, I've drawn from Him patience, because I've had to be patient. As a spousal caregiver, you have to be patient. You have to be kind. You have to be compassionate. You have to be giving. You have to be selfless. All those things. None of it I could give to myself. All of it came from God. I've had to totally depend on Him for everything in this caregiving season. And I thank Him for it. Was it hard? Yes. When you're comfortable not being patient, when you're comfortable with being selfish, when you're comfortable with always being angry, it's hard to give those things up. But in order to have peace, in order to be content in whatever season God has you in, you can only do that with God, because you're nothing without Him. So just to hear your story and the beauty of it and how you surrendered yourself to God and you surrendered to His saying, Leah, you have to be a spousal caregiver, and your willingness to hold on to your commitment to your husband. There's beauty in it. There's beauty in all of it. Beauty for ashes, right?
Yes. And I think that's just such a beautiful term. You know, we're sharpened and we're built even more in His image because of all of this. And when I got married, I made a covenant with God. And I intended to honor that till the end of my life,
Mm-hmm.
or his life, whichever came first. And I'm a bit older than he is, so I thought it would be me. And even in his sickness and his dying, there was great joy because he learned so much in the 4.5 minutes that he was dead. And I got him back a million times better than he was before. So God uses everything to His glory.
It hit the fan. And it goes
But
back to relinquishing that role where we can't wrap our identity in spousal caregiving. That's not who we are.
and being a caregiver doesn't necessarily mean that either.
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean you have to give up everything you are to care for that person. It's a hard thing, but once again, with a support system, it's so much easier to hold on to yourself. And you're going to change through the journey, of course. Everybody would change through anything like that. But it's always for the better. It's never for the negative.
Beautiful woman, Leah. Beautiful woman. Beautiful story. Thank you for sharing
You're
your
welcome.
time today.